What was terrible then but funny now? 1. One time I was hooking up with this girl for the first time in the backseat of her car. I was going down on her, and I noticed that she was really wet. Almost too wet. I didn't think much of it and kept going. At this point, I noticed the taste of blood. Fuck. I tried to keep my cool and evaluate the situation by kissing slowly up her belly so I could take a look. That's when I noticed a trail of blood that I had just made all the way up to her belly button. I shot up and gave her the most concerned look of my life, but here's the twist. I saw blood dripping down from my face. It was mine. I got a nosebleed. Her cloth seats were stained. 2. Me and my friends got robbed once, and my friend handed over his wallet, then remembered that his ID was in there and what a bitch it is to get a new one, so he started arguing with the robber to let him take the ID out, and they get into a full back and forth argument over it. Robber eventually opens his wallet and is trying to slide the ID out of the plastic sleeve thing and is having trouble. My friend snatched the wallet from him, slides his ID out, and hands back the wallet. We were all terrified at the time. But looking back, we laugh about how stupid that was. The whole scene could have come straight out of a sitcom. 3. I had an unbelievably busy couple of weeks with work. Thinking of so many things, I ended up accidentally closing my car keys in my trunk. Called and waited for CAA, roadside assistance. They got there. I realized my car wasn't even locked. 4. Broke up with my girlfriend of the time, and after a long and tearful goodbye, I turned from her room and fell down a flight of stairs, actually hurting myself quite badly. Insisted I was okay and hobbled out the door and her life forever. 5. 5th grade graduation, I was selected to present some award to one of my teachers. No one told me anything about it, so day of I get called first out of the 5 or so that were being given, and I really confusedly stood up. They had said something about how these potted little trees at the front of the room were part of the award in the preface. So in the absolute silence of that room, I meekly walked to one of the trees, picked it up pot and all, and carried it on stage to the teacher at the podium. The stage was set up so that I had to go all the way to one side, up a short set of stairs, and back to the center. When I finally arrived at the podium, I put the tree down and a little dirt spilled out. The teacher standing at the podium finally mercifully broke the silence after another few seconds, hugged me and said something about her award being hand-delivered, and I went back and sat down. Assumedly beat red. What was terrible then, but funny now, part 2. 1. Was walking down the hallway talking to my crush when suddenly I had to fart. For some stupid reason, my 10-year-old self thought it would be a good idea to interrupt her, stand in front of her, say, "Shh, watch this," and fart. Except it wasn't a fart. That's right. I interrupted my crush, got her attention, and then pooped my pants right in front of her, and then ran off in embarrassment and shame. 2. Bought a vacant house that was filled with junk. Was cleaning out the basement and found a poor dead cat the previous owners must have left to die there alone. I didn't want to touch it, so I called animal control. They came out right away. I showed the guy the cat under some debris. The guy picks it up with tongs and we all find out it is a stuffed animal. He started dying laughing. But at least my shame was only with one guy I would never see again, right? To my complete disbelief, one of my best friend's dad was literally outside the front of the home, checking water meters, since he also worked for the city, and the animal control guy told him all about it. Now both of them are dying laughing, and now all my friends would definitely find out. We still have the stuffed cat years later and laugh. 3. I had an ex-girlfriend call to tell me she had chlamydia. I was totally shocked. Called every single one of my ex-partners because it seemed like the responsible thing to do. It was super embarrassing. I went to the doctor and took the pee test, but because I was the only person who could have given my ex chlamydia, the doctor gave me the antibiotics on the spot so I could start taking them. They made me totally nauseous, one of the worst experiences of my life. A week later, a friend tells me that my ex-girlfriend read her test wrong. Her chlamydia test said pending, and somehow she assumed that meant positive. So, long story short, I never had chlamydia. Not funny at the time, but now I laugh when I think about how ridiculous the whole situation was. 4. My mom once slapped me and my 2 sisters all in one motion. 5. I had been working on a major project for months in another city. We made a near impossible deadline and it was all over. It was supposed to be a joyous moment. I gave an impassioned speech to the team and pumped my fist and somehow threw my back out. Bad. I was planning on walking out, holding my head out high, swelling with pride, going out with a bang. Instead, it ended up with 3 of my employees wheeling my fat ass out the building in a rolling office chair and dumping me in an Uber. At what moment did you realize you were dating an idiot? 1. We were driving around this weird part of Las Vegas and I said, "This is surreal." He said, "I know, it's so real." I repeated, "Surreal," and he repeated, "So real." 2. We were having dinner when I mentioned I couldn't eat cheese because I'm lactose intolerant. He asked how I could eat eggs. I told him that lactose was found in dairy, which comes from cows. He vehemently rejected my explanation that eggs did not come from cows and were not dairy, and wouldn't believe me until he Googled it for himself. 3. He didn't know pickles don't grow out of the ground as pickles. After explaining the whole pickled cucumber situation, he actually didn't believe me at first. We're married, and he's never going to live it down. 4. My girlfriend thinks I made up the USSR. 5. When I had to explain that you spray mosquito repellent on yourself, not in the air at the mosquitoes, for the 3rd time. It's not like wasp spray. Stop fucking wasting it. 6. She thought the movie The Martian was not only a true story, but that Matt fucking Damon was actually on Mars. 7. Every time I went to her house, there was small brown melted V-shapes in the carpet. I always wondered what they were. Then one day I went over one time and saw her hair straightener lying on the carpet. She left it on all the fucking time and would just go to work. Like, how have you not burned your apartment complex down yet? 8. We were watching Django, and during the winter training montage there is a moment where the camera pans over a herd of reindeer. At that moment my ex said something about how she thought it was weird that they would include reindeer in the movie, because it kind of breaks the immersion. I was confused and asked what she meant by that. She went on to explain to me how reindeer weren't real animals, and just make-believe like characters in a fairy tale, aka Rudolph and the rest of Santa's reindeer. 9. when she flipped out because her third grader came home with erect on a spelling list and was on the verge of calling the school. She honestly had lived her entire life not knowing erect had any other use aside from describing a penis. 10. I dated a guy for about a month until I found out that he didn't realize that women's breasts made actual milk to feed their babies. He thought breastfeeding was just a way to hold a baby while giving it a bottle. I told him he was an idiot, and he said with a disgusted sneer, I didn't know that because I have never known any woman who had or would breastfeed their child. I told him that I had breastfed my son, and he called me a child molester. 11. When she thought I was crazy for putting Pop-Tarts in a toaster. Or maybe it was the time she tried making Hamburger Helper for the first time at 27 years old and called me from the store to ask where they sold the brown hamburger meat. I'm wasting away to nothing. Send help. Oh, I almost forgot the best part. She's teaching your children right now in a public school. 12. First time was when he told my parents he was a meatitarian because he eats everything. The same guy told me that the bumps on the side of the highway are so blind drivers know when they run off the road. Ah, high school boyfriends. He was hot though. What is your childhood memory that you thought was normal but realized it was traumatic later in your life? 1. When I was 11, my parents helped a battered wife out of an abusive situation. Her husband was a bad guy but was still roaming free. Nobody knew where he was, and he had made serious threats against my family. My mom ran me through the steps. If he were to break in, I would get my younger siblings in the closet with me. She would run and draw him out and away from the house to a predetermined location in the backyard. Once they left, I would take the shotgun out of the closet and shoot him. I was groomed to kill a man at 11. Never had to, but totally prepared. 2. When I was a kid, if I ever misbehaved even slightly, I would get a savage-ass whooping. The only fucked up part, that I thought at the time, was that the beatings never varied depending on the severity of my misconduct. I bring home an F. Vicious beating. I accidentally forget to take out the trash. Same beating. Never any variation. It wasn't until I was almost 15 that my mind was blown. I went over to a friend's house, and shortly after arrival, his mom came in and started yelling at him because the school called, and he got caught trying to forge her signature for something. He did something that would have left me swollen and blue, and I was getting ready to just bail because I didn't want to see the incoming whooping. But after she was done yelling, she just hugged him and said she was more disappointed than angry, and that they would need to work on things. I was like, what? Where's the ass whooping? Turns out, not every parent decides to beat the living shit out of a kid for every transgression, big or small. Just mine. 3. My big brother used to give me treats, M&Ms, brownies, cheese and bread. Only years later did I realize he was sneaking me food because we were not being fed. I am healthy and functional today because a 3-year-old stole food from me. 4. My cousin's extremely religious mother would practice rapture drills with her. This consisted of her mom bursting into her room at like 3 a.m., banging pots and pans together and screaming, "It's the rapture is happening. Will you be saved?" She would then make my cousin confess her sins to her, and then tell her that she would be going to hell for her sins. It terrified her. But she thought that this was a normal thing that all families' mothers do until adulthood when she casually mentioned it in conversation, and the whole room went silent. Her now husband had to explain to her that no, that is not normal. 5. When I was in the 2nd grade, my older sister came into the bathroom while I was taking a bath to play with my toys with me. I didn't find out until later it was because my father was having a stroke from drinking too much and was making sure I didn't finish taking a bath before the paramedics arrived. 6. It's not so much that I thought it was normal, but I remember once when I was about 5-6 years old coming home and bleeding in the toilet and being scared my parents would find out, so I cleaned myself up and changed my underwear. I'm a female, so in my later childhood and teens I convinced myself that I just got my period really early, despite it never happening again until puberty. After years of therapy, I was finally able to admit that it was actually caused by the abuse I was suffering due to my neighborhood friend's dad. It took me a long time to come to terms with that memory, as well as many others. What is your secret that you can't tell anyone because it will probably ruin your life? 1. When I was 15, my parents were going through a divorce. My mom worked night shifts and my dad was living with a friend of his. One night, my sister, who was 19 at the time, came home pretty drunk from a party. She was acting goofy and fell on the couch next to me. She started grabbing my leg and laughing, and we started fondling. We ended Big Bang attacking right there. When we woke up the next day, she had no recollection of the night before, so I just kept my mouth shut. Fast forward to when I'm 18. Sister is home from college and dad is over for a visit. They get into an argument, and in a fit of rage, my dad announces how he has never forgiven her for the abortion she got when she was 19, and subsequently killing his grandchild. He's very religious. I then realize the baby she aborted was in fact mine, and as far as I know, I am the only one who knows, since she has never mentioned that night. 2. The story everyone knows is my boyfriend and I voluntarily left our place of work because our relationship went against policy, and we valued our relationship more than our crappy jobs. The truth is we got caught Big Bang attacking in my car before work and left in order to avoid repercussions. 3. I have automated the main part of my job and get paid to essentially just show up. 4. In high school, I stole the MP3 player of a classmate, went into the locker room during PE and snatched it. I didn't steal it because I wanted it or to sell it. I just did it because she was an awful judgmental queen bee, and I wanted to get back at her. People saw me with it in hands, so the next day I was called into the principal's office. Steadfastly and self-assuredly denied everything. They looked at my bag, then called my parents, who searched my entire room for the stolen MP3 player. They never found it, so I was let go. Still got into a fist fight with the girl later, though, as she knew it was me. To this day, I've never admitted it to anyone, ever. I was that petty. I still don't feel regret, even though I'm usually empathetic to a fault. She was that awful to others. I recognize it was wrong, though, definitely. In any case, the MP3 player was buried in my garden as soon as I got home, and this garden is currently a megastore parking lot. It's the silliest thing. Don't know why I've never admitted to it. 5. I left my job at an electronics manufacturing company in 2002, but they continued paying me my full salary, including all incremental raises and annual bonus, until they offered me a very generous redundancy package in 2022 due to departmental restructuring, including an $85,000 lump sum contribution to my pension fund. I even got the quarterly magazine and annual Christmas card sent to me. In March of this year, 2023, I got an invite to the 75th anniversary of the company, went along, had a great time at the free bar, and nobody realized I hadn't worked there for over 20 years. You've got to love a good administrative error. What is your secret that you can't tell anyone, because it will probably ruin your life? Part 2. 1. I have a bad back, and from time to time it goes into a full spasm. One day I was getting out of bed, and as my foot hit the floor I went into a full spasm. I have no idea how, but a perfectly formed turd fell out the leg of my shorts and landed on the floor. Due to my spasm, I fell and landed right in the poop. The commotion woke up my GF at the time, and she ran over to check on me. I blamed the dog. I've never actually told anyone this before. 2. 2.5 years ago I was in dire financial straits, so I sold my home to keep my struggling business afloat. I neglected to tell the owners that they have an 800 SQF bunker on the property that I built about 7 years ago, the bunker that I've called home since I sold it. The entrance to it is well hidden, but I still come and go very early, very late in the day. I'm a single man who keeps to himself. I'm now in a situation where I could move somewhere else, but I love this hidden paradise so much. 3. I once rubbed my power pole to a picture of George W. Bush's bulge when I was like 12. 4. I cut off all contact with everyone I know and moved to Kenya. I tell people a fake name and a fake background and have made it appear to my family that I died on boat trip in the Pacific. No, I am not joking. I am dead in the United States. 5. When I was about 5 years old, my sister, 2 years old, and I were in the backyard in a kiddie pool. When my mom went inside, I attempted to drown my sister. After I saw her lifeless, I realized that it was a big mistake. Pulled her out of the pool and called for my mom. Luckily, she knew CPR and she was life-flighted to the hospital. My mom thanked me for saving her, pulling her out of the pool. Next week was my birthday. The police, firefighters, paramedics came to my house to give me gifts and celebrate my birthday. To this day, 20 years later, I still think about it. I remember the day so vividly, not a soul knows the real truth. What's the biggest take one for the team moment you've seen? 1. A little late, but from one of my friends, I heard that there was a huge party in one of the dorm rooms at a boarding school. It was one of the last nights, and the teachers were going around hoping to catch people doing stuff they weren't supposed to be doing. Apparently, when a teacher tried their best to open a door, senior held it down and had everyone else escape through the back door. Needless to say, he got kicked out and nobody else did. What a legend. 2. I thought it was noble how older Japanese people volunteered to help clean up the Fukushima reactor because they knew the horrors of radiation and that they wouldn't live as long as the younger generation who would have to worry about long-term effects like cancer and leukemia. That takes a very deep understanding of the finite nature of your own life and a strong sense of duty. 3. My friend was sleeping over at my house. My parents and brother were all sleeping upstairs while we were downstairs watching TV, playing video games and shit. At around 1 a.m. he asks if this girl can come over. He really wants to get with this girl, and I don't want to turn him down, so I reluctantly agree, on the condition that she's quiet. The three of us are hanging out, and I make some excuse to leave the room so my friend can have some alone time with this girl. I'm upstairs in my room when I start hearing loud moans. This is bad news for me, but great news for my friend. He's losing his virginity to a girl he really likes. I hear stirring in the next room, and I know that their bout of loud lovemaking has woken my parents. The last thing I want is for my confused father to walk in on my friend fucking this girl in my basement. What do? I go to the orange and black site, click on the first video I see, crank that shit to 100 on my speakers and let it play for the 3 minutes that my buddy ended up lasting. My dad ended up coming into my room, discovering the source of the noise. I even threw in some fapping motion under the covers, and awkwardly leaving. My buddy ended up having the best fucking time ever, bro. But Jesus, there were some awkward glances exchanged between my parents and I the next morning. 4. When I worked at the Golden Arches, we had a customer. Asshole. Shit paint the stall in the men's room. I was heavily pregnant, so I noped the hell out of that. I offered an incentive to whatever poor soul went in to clean it. Debates on who would do it lasted about 15 minutes, and one of my more troublesome crew members decided he really wanted an hour break, paid, so he volunteered. He spent 2 hours doing the task, with repeated trips outside to puke. After he was done, I called my boss and explained, with photos, what happened, and sent the guy home 4 hours early and paid his entire shift. I had to replace his uniform just so he could drive home. We torched the old one. 5. It was a get-together with a bunch of coworkers on Friday night, and we all decide to go to a nightclub. The bouncer denies the group and tells me the reason after I take him to the side. He thinks 2 of the women do not fit the club's ideal image. He would let us in if we ditched the 2 girls. One of the girls comes up to me and asks why they couldn't get in and half-jokingly accuses me. I say, yeah, it's because of me. And then she proceeds to tell the group it's my fault they couldn't get in. I keep my mouth shut. People who killed someone in self-defense? What happened? 1. I was being jumped by 4 guys. One stabbed me in the side. In the scuffle, I managed to thrust my knife into one of the guy's sides and into his lung. The other 3 ran off. I sat against a fence listening to him try to breathe and cried until the police and ambulance arrived. He was DOA. I was taken to the hospital and then the station and questioned. Held till the trial because I was a minor. Was deemed self-defense and forced into therapy to deal with the night terrors. Lasted about 5 years. 2. Not me, but was on the scene. I'm a music video director in Los Angeles. We were shooting a music video scene in Compton when some goons tried to compress the video set scene. One thing led to another where one of the goons pulled out a gun demanding payment to film in his hood. Personal security pulled out his gun and shot the guy dead in front of everyone. Bittersweet moment for sure. 3. I knew an old guy from my time in county jail who killed a guy who broke into his house to rob him and held down the robber's GF until cops came. The robber had a gun, and the old man gutted him with a kitchen knife he had sitting by his wallet. They charged this old man with first-degree murder, and he fought it in county for 2+ years, eventually took a plea for aggravated assault. Happened in Pima County, Arizona. 4. When my father-in-law was only 13, he killed a guy breaking into their home by splashing boiling oil onto his face and then stabbing him in the neck. This was post-WWW2 rural Azerbaijan. They just dug a hole and put him in it and didn't tell anyone. Apparently this guy had made threats to his father leading up to this. He would tell this story quite often as if it was some fun, cool, badass story. What's the dumbest way you've managed to get laid? 1. My boyfriend is, in general, an awful guesser at things. Like to the point that it's a running joke. During a holiday, his job had this jar of candy where you'd guess the number of individual bits. I visited him at work one day and he asked me if I wanted to guess. I agree. He says, "Can we make it interesting?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I agreed that if I won, he'd take my car in for an oil change and tune up, which I just hate doing. And if he won, I'd let him do insert kinky Big Bang thing here, thinking, this idiot is an awful guesser, I've got this in the bag. Anyways, so this motherfucker is the one who put the candy in there. I am stupid. He still took my car in BTW, and I didn't have the worst time ever. 2. Halloween contest at a club. I dressed up as a tampon and took third prize. After a few drinks, I started walking up to girls and asking them how they were doing. One of them told me to leave them alone, and her friend said that's rude. I simply smiled, bowed my tampon-adorned head, and said, "Well, I guess I'll see you next month." The girl that said the other one was rude bought me a drink. One thing led to another, and yeah, we went home together. Odd and dumb, but hey, we had a great time. 3. Me. So do you want to trauma bond on some roller coasters at Six Flags and end up falling in love, or should we skip right to the Big Bang attacking and do the theme park thing later? Her. You've only got $10. 4. A girl I met in class was lost for her next class. Showed her the way and got her number. You know, if she gets lost again. We parted for the day. She was pretty, so I ran the story to my roommate. Roommate decided to play a dumb joke by sending her a message saying that I miss her already. She texted her dorm address. Brought some food, but she wanted to do something else. That was it. LOL. 5. I jokingly told my sister's friend she was on my to-do list. She took it seriously and asked if I wanted to cross her off. 6. Parked in a multi-story car park while we went on our first date. Had some grub. End of the night, I offer her a lift home. She accepts. We walk to where I parked. The multi-story car park is locked after 10 p.m. I hadn't noticed signs saying this would happen and didn't think it was a fucking thing in the first place. She invites me back to her sofa after I ask for any recommendations on taxi providers. An hour later, we're both big banging our lives away. 7. A girl at a bar said I have beautiful eyes. Everyone tells me blue shirts make my eyes look great. I was wearing one and had just painted my bedroom blue. Skipping that context, I just replied, "You should see how good they look in my bedroom." 8. A Tinder match said I looked like Seth Rogen. She invited me to a hangout. When I got there, she told me that if she could Big Bang attack any celebrity, it would be Seth Rogen, and I laughed. She then introduced me to a couple of her friends, and she asked them, if I could Big Bang any celebrity, who would it be? And they both said, Seth Rogen, and I was a close enough second. 9. Some girl I hung out with had an older sister who was a true, majestic 10 out of 10, but 6 years older than me. I would flirt with her all the time, but never even got close. I was a senior in high school, so I kind of expected it. One night I saw her at a club, and she ended up needing a ride home with all her friends, before Uber days. Her house was the closest, so I dropped her off first. About 2 minutes after the last girl was dropped off, she texted me asking if I could come back real quick to kill a giant spider in her house because she was freaked out. I drove back. At this point I was sort of hoping she was lying to get me to come over, but she led me to her bedroom and, lo and behold, showed me a fucking giant spider. I killed it. But then threw a Hail Mary and said, "You know, if there was one, there's probably more," and joked with her that I should stay so I didn't have to waste gas when the rest came out. She laughed, so I said, "Did it work?" Within 30 seconds we were having the craziest Big Bang attack session of my life. What is an adult problem that nobody prepared you for? 1. Taking care of yourself when you are sick. That shit sucks. 2. Having to still make a living for yourself and keep going, even after something traumatic has happened to you or your family. 3. Searching for a job. 4. Loneliness. 5. Many things. First, medical insurance and medical bills. The system is irrevocably broken. Second, food prep and costs. Third, how challenging it can be to juggle work, family, fun, and sleep. Lastly, as a woman, I was never prepped for what my own body can and will do. It was a learning curve for sure. 6. Parents that become needy and expect you to fix their issues as you're trying to figure your own life out. 7. Death of a loved one. I've dealt with my wife and sister dying, cancer in both cases. My sister took 4 years, my wife 3 months. My advice to others based on my ex. First, there was no getting over it. You learn to live with it. Second, be close to family if you can. They can help more than you know to be. Remember the people that were there for you. That is a friend. Furthermore, don't beat yourself up. I went through a period wishing death had taken me, not my wife. Finally, it's okay to cry. And if you are going through this, good luck, my friend. I don't know you, but I've walked that road and you are not alone. 8. That love is really about finding someone who will bring you soup when you're sick and ice cream when you're lazy. 9. How fleeting everything is. Feelings change overnight and relationships, both platonic and romantic, fade when you focus on other things. Opportunities disappear if they aren't seized immediately, while people you don't see every day quickly become a distant memory as your lives constantly move in different directions. 10. The fucking exhaustion that lingers regardless how much sleep you get. It's like an exhaustion that a nap can't fix. 11. Mail is no longer fun as an adult because it's all bills. 12. Clear direction, I suppose. All the way up until college, you're pretty much told what to do and how to do it. Once you're out of school working for a few years, you realize that society stops telling you what to do, which can be freeing, but it can also be terrifying. I know people who have literally jumped into grad school and PhD programs because it was such a clearer path for them. 13. Working 9 to 5 technically means working 8-6, as you have to commute to work every day. Then, when the weekends come, you're so drained that you just want to sleep and talk with your SO. As a result, making friends or maintaining old relationships is fucking hard. If you do put in the effort, then you'll be exhausted afterwards. I have no idea how adults can raise kids on top of this. All being an adult seems to be is working to live. Shit's hard. 14. Dealing with manipulative people. My family is, thankfully, sane. My social circle in school went through ups and downs but was generally sane. My first girlfriend as an adult, later my wife, is a manipulative narcissist. It took me years to get a handle on my reactions to her drama before I could really control my own life. 15. Everyone expects you to buy them fucking Christmas presents now. What are some disturbing facts you wish you didn't know? 1. That orphaned newborn kittens have to be carefully monitored because they seek out the nipple so aggressively they suck on the other kitten's dende, often to the point of removing the dende entirely. Thanks, Ologies Podcast. 2. In some places in the world where genocide and terrorism exist together, male neighbors will trade homes and sleep in the homes with neighbors' wives and daughters. If homes are invaded and the marauders demand that the males in a household assault the females, they aren't hurting their own family members. 3. Everything that happened to Sylvia Likens and the insufficient amount of things that happened to everyone involved. 4. Your eyelids are the same kind of skin as foreskin. 5. When a body falls from a building, they don't go splat. They bounce, unless it's a very, very high fall. Also, if you're driving over 80 kilometers per hour and hit a horse or large animal, you can inhale its intestines and suffocate on them. Some factual stories from my ex-police father. 6. Fatal familial insomnia. Super rare, but also super scary. Basically, you stop being able to sleep, then you go mad, then you die. No cure. 7. Bedbugs practice traumatic insemination. The females have a genital area, but the males prefer to just stab their dende into the female's abdomen and ejaculate right into her abdominal cavity. 8. That any given moment, and out of nowhere, our solar system could be blasted by a huge gamma-ray burst. It would wipe everyone and everything out in a millisecond. 9. The album cover of Dawn of the Black Hearts by Mayhem was a real photo of Pele Olens after he ended his own life taken by his bandmate. And 10. Bloodworms have teeth made of biological copper. They have metal teeth. 11. Male horses get a buildup of smegma in their dende sheath that can form into a rock-hard nugget that can be 4 to 5 centimeters cross. So it has to be kept clean, and these beans have to be removed manually by the owner, or a vet. 12. The sheer power and devastation of hurricanes. I watched an interview with people who survived the Labor Day hurricane of 1935. Their accounts were just awful. Some highlights. One man, who at the time was a teenager, was trying to get to their storm shelter out back. He was holding his toddler sister. Once he got outside, debris hit the girl in the head, smashing her head against his face. She died instantly. He said he just stood there, holding his sister's body for several seconds. One man watched their refrigerator fall on top of and pin their mother, breaking her back and paralyzing her. She was alive when he left her. People climbed trees to get away from the storm surge. Once it receded, they had to crawl over bodies caught in lower branches. Several people were wandering around town naked afterwards. The storm had stripped them of every piece of clothing. 13. One way many states' departments of corrections try to anticipate the number of prison cells will be required in 20 years is based on how many third graders fail the state reading assessment. 14. Dolphins are one of the most sexually aggressive animals on Earth. 15. Many of the human organs trafficked on the black market in the United States come from narcos. There have been many cases involving medical professionals, and trucks that have been found with bodies are missing organs. What's the most common lie employers tell their employees? 1. If you just do this extra work until the other position is filled, you will be rewarded later. 2. You may have heard some rumors that, insert bad thing here is happening, but I'm here today to tell you that this isn't the case. 3. You aren't allowed to discuss your pay salary. 4. That you owe them loyalty. You don't. You are a number in SAP that costs money. Once you are replaceable or your skill set is no longer required, you're done. No matter your situation in life. 5. We are like a family here. 6. End-of-year reviews are objective and non-biased. Self-appraisals matter. Where I work, management literally sits in a room and ranks everyone based on the way they feel and sets their rating for the year before self-appraisals are submitted. The whole process is a bit of a joke. 7. Everything is okay and there will be no layoffs. When you have worked in an industry for a long time, you start to see the signals. Most employers will lie right up to the day they let you go. I have seen it happen time and time again. One employer did 3 rounds of layoffs in about 6 weeks. They had to know. 8. Thanks for all your hard work. My last foreman asked me to sell my grandma's paid-off house so I could move her closer so I could be available more often. Because I couldn't work weekends and helped her with her chores on the weekends, an hour away in a different town. Employers don't give a shit about people. 9. Your anonymous employee feedback surveys are 100% not anonymous. 10. That your PTO was approved, then they say it wasn't. 11. HR is your friend. 12. In software jobs, the most common lie is, we are using the latest tech, or we are upgrading to the latest tech right now. 13. Unlimited PTO. It's a nonsensical crap idea, and many firms have dumped it. 1. It's unlimited until you take too much and become a nuisance. How do you reconcile being contractually entitled to it with actually doing your job? 2. There's no use it or lose it, hence you might end up taking none at all. 14. You don't need a union. It's bullshit every time. If you are a worker, a union would vastly improve your job and standard of living no matter what work you do. 15. One of my older jobs at a grocery store would tell us how appropriated we were, then proceed to only give us 10% discounts on payday only, and our Christmas bonus was a gift certificate to the store. Raises were rare and small. They pulled the same, we appreciate you so much, we really don't want you to leave crap when I got a new job and gave them my 2 weeks. My answer was to match my new job's pay. What are signs that a person genuinely is unintelligent? 1. Confusing confidence with intelligence. Just because you say something with conviction doesn't mean it's smart. 2. They don't want to understand and or learn. 3. Consistently failing to grasp basic logic, refusing to consider new information, or making the same poor decisions repeatedly despite evidence. 4. I believe there is a study that pointed to people below 85 IQ were incapable of comprehending false scenarios. They would ask them, what would you feel right now if you had skipped breakfast this morning? And get the response, no, I did eat breakfast this morning. And no matter how many times the question was reworded or explained, it was just beyond their comprehension. Well, intelligence is a spectrum, so the more difficulty a person has answering what-if scenarios, the less intelligent they likely are. 5. Inability to see a problem or scenario from another person's point of view. They don't have to agree with the other person, but they should be able to understand an alternate perspective. 6. Acting like they know better than you on a topic they ask about. Specifically, this is coming from someone in the IT field, the number of people who, when I ask questions, will go, "No, it can't be that," and refuse to even try. I have zero respect for them. 7. Inability to genuinely self-reflect. 8. Their view of life is largely defined by winning and losing, nothing in between. 9. They talk over people to win arguments instead of making valid points. 10. Unintelligent people often overestimate their own intelligence, misread situations, and credit their misreading to being smarter than everyone else. Here's an example. The dude in the giant truck who pulls onto the shoulder of the traffic-jammed highway and drives past all the other idling cars to an exit to get there sooner. That guy genuinely believes that he figured out something that no one else did. He thinks he figured out how to avoid a traffic jam because he's smarter than all the other people waiting in traffic to get to that exit. He thinks everyone would do that if they were just smart enough to have thought of it. He's not smart enough to realize that the rest of the people are just trying not to be assholes and probably already thought about driving on the shoulder but decided against it because it's an asshole thing to do. 11. Smart people don't make unnecessary assumptions. Conversely, stupid people often go the extra mile. 12. Not necessarily unintelligent, but not a good sign. No passion for learning and being curious. If I had to choose between two applicants, one who is undoubtedly a brilliant mind but only wants to be better than everyone and one who loves to learn and shows an interest in others' work, I'd take the latter every time. E13. A wise man avoids others, but when he cannot due to circumstance or should not due to responsibility, he treats them kindly. In every way you can measure intelligence, the one who is loud and cruel comes up short. What turned you into a villain? 1. My GF kept stopping me from leaving her bed when I woke up. So when it was cold, I put my hand on the metal part of the bed. Then I grabbed her leg. 2. Disability due to illness that I had zero control over. Got to love genetic disease that pop up out of nowhere and almost kill you at 19. 3. Ex-wife's affair, seeing so many marriages end because someone cheated. My incredibly wealthy boss one time telling me that if you follow the rules, you'll die poor. Witnessing over and over the wealthiest people I know admit openly that they intentionally live in a gray area, take risks, or engage in otherwise moderately to severely unethical behavior for the sake of money. What I know at 45 that I didn't know at 25. There is no such thing as karma. Bad people don't always get caught, and if you let them, people will chew you up because there is no consequence. 4. Bar. I worked at hired a registered sex offender who hit on the minors, and I threw up a massive stink about it. They all hated me after that, and he didn't get fired. 5. Getting humiliated by an ex cheating on me and the video going around my entire community, and hearing the bragging that came after from the guys. 6. Supported my mother through leaving my dad when the family moved abroad to New Zealand. Through the next 14 years of my life, I would always stick up for her even when I shouldn't have. I helped her with her debts. I gave her money when she had none. She had the nerve to kick me out 3 times when I didn't pay for something she wanted. I felt sorry for her, but now as I've aged, I've realized so much. She baby-trapped my father, literally did not care at all for me or my sister, has basically disowned us both for our eldest cousin, because she's had children. She's neglected most animals she has, and neglected us as kids to fund her alcohol addiction, and addiction to just chasing any dende she could get whether her kids were in the room or not. Fuck her. 7. I'm a Sith, not a villain. That is a Jedi's point of view. 8. George W. Bush and Colin Powell. A few dozen kids grew up without fathers because I was relentless looking for those weapons of mass destruction. 9. I became a driver. Every driver is their own main character and the other drivers are the villains of that story. 10. Spoiler. When I watched Dune 2 with my girlfriend and saw she was annoyed by the ending and tried explaining to her the political reasoning behind Paul choosing the princess. Shouldn't have done it. Didn't get laid that night. 11. Bad girl boss, bitch villain era is so much more empowering and fulfilling than persistent letdown and heartbreak from being good. Is it not your own life? Fuck it. 12. An abusive childhood. Not an excuse, but it is why I wish I could have been a different person for so much of my life. Damaged people raise damaged people. More people need to be more aware of their damages before they become parents because you don't have to be a terrible person to be a bad parent. 13. Becoming a manager. Having to be the only functioning brain for 50+ people while mediating their petty disputes makes me want to rend them all limb from limb. 14. Trying to be nice and fair only to get harassed and abused by the people I put my trust on, either friends or jobs. 15. Seeing scientists warn other adults about environmental destruction in the 90s and 2000s. Seeing them get ignored and bullied. Seeing the dystopia we live in the 2020s, caused by non-scientist adults refusing to listen to scientists. Yewenjia was right. 16. Some kid stole a bowl I set out with candy on Halloween years back. I have been seeking revenge ever since then using random methods. Steal the candy, don't steal the bowl. What is the most awkward question you've ever been asked? 1. How are your meat curtains? Are they thick and heavy? It was rather unexpected. This was a question asked by my cousin at the Christmas family dinner last year. The discussion topic was, why are you still single? 2. I went to a DMV office and the lady didn't believe my given name, pronounced like Blaze. So I showed her my driver's license. Then she asked if I changed my name before, so I told her no. She then stares at my license, looks at me, then asks if I smoke Namek Kush. I just wanted my driving record. 3. I was shopping, and a teenage boy asked if I could help him with something. I said, sure, as he led the way. We ended up by the condoms. WTF? So he proceeded to ask awkward me which ones are the best and most pleasurable for women. I was a virgin. 4. Did you have Big Bang my sister? 5. How was it learning a new language? We actually speak English in New Zealand. 6. My birthday is 9/12 and I've had a shocking amount of people ask me, did 9/11 steal your birthday's thunder? Never know what to say. 7. How come you're not black? A 5-year-old asked me this while I was teaching preschool. He was black. My assistant teacher and his one-on-one were also black. They both started laughing while my brain reset itself trying to think of a good answer and also trying not to laugh. 8. The fall that I was pregnant with my daughter, a large fitness center was opening in my town. The franchise owner was running all over town in a huge gold-painted Hummer, signing up new members for his new gym. I was about 8 months pregnant, and it was a particularly hot day when I decided to run to the grocery store, dressed in my maternity jeans and a huge old t-shirt of mine from college, something I normally slept in. But hell, it was a hot day. I was hugely pregnant, and who the fuck was going to say anything to me? I'm stashing my groceries in the back of my Volvo when up drives this massive Humvee drove up behind my car. Out pops the asshole gym owner, all tanned and stupid looking. He gives me his spiel, trying to convince me to join the gym. I keep saying no, thank you, and continue loading my groceries. Eventually, he gets frustrated at my negativity. He asks, "Can't you see how fat you are? You need to join my gym. I can help you." "I'm not fat, you asshole. I'm pregnant." He ran away. 9. At the grocery store picking out some lunch meat, not from the deli, just some plain old Oscar Mayer, when a man sidles up uncomfortably close to me, and after a moment says, "So, what do you think about the ham?" 10. "Are you a virgin?" asked by a kid I was babysitting. Later that night, the kid's dad spontaneously kissed me, so it's pretty clear where the kid got that behavior from. Needless to say, I never babysat for their family ever again. 11. I was working in a call center doing tech support for a cable company. I fixed a lady's cable and she was so happy she asked me if I wanted to marry her daughter. I politely declined. I've always wondered what if, though. 12. So it says here that you're married. Do you fuck around on your wife? I was interviewing for a supervisor job, replacing the one they fired for having an affair with one of the women that worked under him. Hey. And she was suing the company after he went back to his wife.